today, Nick de Blocq, the CEO of Kinetiko. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for a warm welcome, Maria. It's always good to be chatting with you. Glad to be back.
Could you just give a very brief update on your 5-well production test program in South Africa?
Yes, indeed. Just to give you some context and background on these, we're evolving in the normal way. In the exploration journey, one moves to the end of an exploration phase, if you like. And on the path towards eventual development and production, you go through an appraisal program. And that's what we're doing at the moment. We've got 5 wells planned in this appraisal phase. And the idea is to get some accurate data out of the field. Okay, we have an economic model that is basically evaluated on experiential assumptions and things. So one has to be very careful and conservative in that regard. What I'm certainly hoping that these wells do is give us a sense of that conservative approach to the model, and expand it into something a little bit more positive, perhaps. We're expecting these wells to produce at rates that are in excess of what we've been assuming in the past, conservatively, is what I'm trying to say. And the idea is to put these wells onto extended test regimes. So after we finished drilling, casing, cementing, we get some very good logs run, and then we put them on an extended well test program. Typically, when you're working in the field and you're doing anything other than coring, a production well, or what we call a PT well, which is a permeability test well, is flow tested just for a few days. We want to put these onto a test period of a couple of months, so that we get stability in the rates. We get some kind of a plateau flow, and use the stable rates then to backfeed, to retrofit the model. And we're certainly hoping that these rates are going to give us higher numbers than we've assumed in the past, conservatively, to go back there. We can also use the micro pressure data to extrapolate and predict, for example, depletion curves. Look, every gas field produces for a certain period of time, and then it depletes and it diminishes, like Sasol is starting to experience right in Mozambique. And the model also has to understand over time, if you're going to be producing for 25 or 30 years, how often will we need to replace the wells, for example? When to put in building costing for that kind of exercise as well. Is it 10 years? Is it 15 years? We've actually no idea. So we're hoping that this process of appraisal actually gives us enough data to give us confidence in the model, give our investors confidence in the model, and to understand our longer term costs. That's the approach we're taking with these wells.
And could you provide an overview of your plans to leverage existing infrastructure, including gas pipelines, transmission lines, to ensure the commercial value in South Africa's natural gas resources?
Well, that is such a very good question, because where our gas fields are located are right in the heart of infrastructure in South Africa. We're surrounded literally by power stations, by the coal mines feeding the power stations, all of whom are burning eye-watering amounts of diesel to keep their operations running 24/7. We offer a much cleaner, non-pollutive solution to the mine power generation. We're surrounded by road and rail. There is heavy grid with capacity in South Africa. That's a big word. And of course, the pipeline, the Lily pipeline feeding south from Sasol's operations in Secunda, comes through all 3 of our existing exploration right areas. And Sasol has gone out to the market already to warn them that there is a gas cliff coming. The term is known throughout South Africa now, certainly within industry, that the potential for the onshore fields in Mozambique to start declining is imminent. That Sasol sees more value in using its own gas to clean up its own act, right? I mean, they are the world champion coal to liquids supplier. And they're very, very good at what they do. It is, however, a high emission output. It's pollutive. The sulfur dioxides, the nitrogen oxides, the soot and ash that comes from burning coal at Eskom and utilizing coal for liquids at Sasol, are things that are, they have to be increasingly aware of. And both parties, we believe, are going to start utilizing more and more gas to clean up their act as they go forward. So there'll be less available for the market. So the thermal market currently, there are probably 24 off-takers down that Lily pipeline, starting at ArcelorMittal in Newcastle and going down to the coast of KZN. And there are pulp mills and sugarcane mills and chemical factories, et cetera, down that line that are facing an existential issue without the gas. So fortunately, you know, that infrastructure is something that we can and should look at in terms of our production. However, having said that, and with all of this infrastructure around us, our very first maiden production project is designed to be liquid natural gas, LNG, which is going to be taken to an existing market that comes along with our partners. Our intentions for the very first production development is a three-way deal between us, the IDC, which is South African government, and our partners, FFS, who have an existing client base for the product. So it's a very useful partnership or mix for us, whereby they bring expertise in both the midstream and the downstream. And their existing market will absorb the output from that first production cluster of wells, if you like. Further, just to this, that's just to the north of a little town called Amersfoort in Mpumalanga. Just to the south of the same town is the Majuba Power Station, which is designed, fortunately, to co-fire on gas. There is a pipeline hanging out of that boiler plant into the veld, ready to receive gas. And it never has, but you know, we have gas on its doorstep, so that's probably a no-brainer to develop that to feed gas into that existing pipeline to feed the boiler plant. Eskom can tick a green box, you know, because every molecule we can produce obviously is non-pollutive, halves the emissions. It's just almost again a no-brainer to do.
Yeah.
The other appraisal wells that we're doing further to the south could well define the positioning of fields or clusters of well developments for different reasons. We could be doing direct gas to power. We could be injecting to the Lily pipeline. We could be doing LNG for transportation to market. We could be doing a lot of things with that as well. So that will all evolve over time, but it does take time to get there, indeed.
I'm so glad that you actually brought up the LNG, because I was actually going to ask, like, what is the importance of development of South Africa's onshore LNG projects? And do you perhaps have a timeline on that?
Both very good questions indeed. Our ability to provide LNG domestically obviously is a very, very good idea. When you consider that with the gas cliff imminent, and imminent, I mean anything up to 2 or 3 years still to go, or even 4 if we're fortunate. But it's coming. And South Africa Inc., if you like, the industry of South Africa is not going to be able to survive without importation of LNG. It's almost a dead cert that this is going to happen, and quite possibly initially through Matola, Mozambique, and then Richards Bay. Now we are the biggest cheerleaders of that, ironically, because we need that level of scale of support for the South African gas market until such time as we can collectively, I'm talking about us as Kinetiko and our collaborators around us, to get up to scale to compete within that sustained market. Now, with a domestic LNG product versus imported content, I think the outcome should be reasonably evident, you know, that it's not too difficult to compete within. And, you know, gas master plans, etc., are increasingly now focused on going local first. So we supported at almost legislation level there, you know, regulatory level, as a preferred source of gas for South African industry. But importation is a given. I've no doubt at all they're going to have to import in huge quantity. But good thing, you know, because there's a market that we can then eventually compete within. Yeah.
And
So timing, I beg your pardon. It's literally the multi-million-dollar question. And it's a function of how long it's going to take for authorities to process things like production right applications. We have quite a bit still to do in the field, although, as I said before, our exploration efforts have come to an end. We're moving into appraisal and eventually into development and then production. Before we can do development at scale, and certainly production, we are going to need production rights. So the environmental authorization has to become a record of decision in our favor. How long that's going to take, we really don't know. We've got a bit of extending of an existing 5-well field that we have to the north of Amersfoort to do. We'd like to extend that to perhaps 10, at least 10 wells, so that when the PR comes back to us, we're immediately able to produce to a microscale LNG plant. It's called the cryo box, right? You can do 5,000 tons per annum, driven by about 10 wells or so. And we can get our teeth straight into it as we develop that field further to eventually supply to a fixed plant doing about 60,000 or so tons per annum. These little cryo boxes are modular and they're movable, they're mobile. We can move, they can follow the drill bit with supplying from various well clusters. But you've got a year's lead time to get your hands on a cryo box. We're going to have to work very closely with the authorities to understand the time they need to process our production rights applications. Is that 1 year? Is that 2 years? Is it 18 months? We really don't know at this stage. It's something that's yet to be tested. So there's no finite answer right now in terms of timing. It's just that it absolutely will get there, because there's absolutely no way that these production projects cannot happen. South Africa needs our product. They are urgent and hungry for it. So even the outcome of the appraisal work is almost academic, although you do need accuracy in your models. There's simply no way that these projects can't happen.
And my final question, we met last year, we're back again this year. Can you tell us how many of these of African Energy Week have you attended, and what are you looking to achieve at this year's event?
I've attended them all, and the originator of all of this, NJ Ayok, he's a man who, when he speaks, it just resonates with all of us in the industry. He speaks with such wisdom and such directness. He's not afraid of saying what he believes, and what he believes are things that we equally believe. So I think this event, AEW, has become the premier oil and gas energy conference, if you like, in Africa. I think it's going to grow, given outside influences and other things moving around. I do believe that this is going to grow even further. I mean, I was impressed with the size of the exhibition hall. I'm impressed with the amount of delegates that are here. And to imagine it growing is not that difficult. I think as a company, we increasingly need to be involved, because we are going to be a substantial player in terms of alleviating the energy paucity in South Africa. So AEW, I believe, represents an important place of gathering for like-minded companies and people and individuals, for service suppliers, for off-takers, for eventual partners and investors. It's a good forum.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Maria. It's been a pleasure.